All right, and we were going to go ahead and welcome a guest here on Sarape de San Diego. We usually talk with the community of soccer in San Diego, but today we're going to expand the horizons of this segment. I'm pleased to welcome a very, very insightful person, not just in soccer, not just in MLS verse, but just in general here in the American version of the sport. Fabian Renkel, how are you, man?
Hey, thank you for having me on. That was a beautiful intro, man. You're making me tear up. But no, I'm super grateful to be here. I'm super grateful to be talking to the people of San Diego. You guys are brand new to this, and we're all happy to have you guys here. And we're happy to have San Diego because you guys keep on beating everybody in the West. So it's exciting times to be in San Diego. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it can't be understated in terms of just how much everybody's being surprised by San Diego. And I think now it's just kind of like the resetting of expectations. And just briefly, if you can just kind of give an insight on kind of what you do in terms of how you cover the game and a little bit of a background on yourself, please.
Yeah, look, I mean, I started off by making a Quakes podcast. I started off, doing tectonic takes. That was my first kind of thing in soccer. We would talk, night and day about the San Jose Earthquakes. And then I got invited by the Earthquakes to, attend the press conferences. And then it kind of grew from there. I eventually ended up, going to press conferences on other teams. And then I started to cover the league in total. And then I covered the bigger tournaments like the United States men's national team, Copa America. And I've been very grateful to been able to cover a whole bunch of big games and work for places like Sports Illustrated, 90 Minute, SBI Soccer, and now Urban Pitch. So, no, extremely grateful. I've been doing this for, I want to say about 4 years now, 5 years. But yeah, I'm pretty new to this game too, just like all you guys.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And again, you can check that out here on Urban Pitch. And as well, just a great follow on social media and all the things that you do in covering the sport. And again, just kind of give you that perspective on the outsider from outside of San Diego, right? How much of a shock, or at least now, right? Uh, Halfway through the season, is it that San Diego keeps being successful and being, playing very well, top of the table? They were yay close from being top of the supporters shield race after this weekend. They lost against Houston, but what's that been like? Just kind of seeing how San Diego's unfolded into the MLS.
Yeah, look, I'll be the first one to admit that I was completely wrong about San Diego. I knew that they could possibly make, the playoffs. I thought the West was kind of weak compared to looking at the East. But man, oh man, did I not think they were 3 points away from being a Supporters Shield contending team, right? And look, I think San Diego, I was the first person to say that I hated their expansion draft. And I was the first person to say there was so much talent on that expansion draft. I was shocked that they went with the people who they went with. But they proved me wrong. I think they ended up getting a couple of those guys anyway without having to use an expansion pick on them. So I ate my words pretty quickly. Like Negri was one of those players that I thought, they should have kind of went with, and they eventually did. I'm not sure if it was in the expansion draft or if it was through free agency, but they ended up getting a couple of those guys. I was the first to be wrong about CJ Dos Santos. I thought Dos Santos was going to be not MLS ready, to be honest. What I saw from him in Miami, I thought, man, I'm not sure if this guy is ready to take on a full-time role. And he's completely done that. He's done everything possible to be, a great goalkeeper in this league so far. I mean, talk about passion. I mean, dude was blood gushing out of his nose, right? And everybody thought maybe he should be playing, but hey, you can't put it past him. He wanted to be out there, or he wanted to finish that game out. That was a crazy game. 17 minutes of extra time. Who would have thought, right? And something in MLS that's very hard to do that San Diego has done extremely well is get an MVP. And Andres Dreyer has been able to already look like an MVP player when everybody and their mom, including me, thought it was going to be Chucky Lozano. And I was thinking, Chucky, he's a good player. If you're a Mexican national team fan, you love him. But is he an MLS MVP caliber type of guy? And also you look at, is he going to be motivated like he was in Europe, right? Because that's something you have to think about when you're bringing over a European star like that. And it didn't even matter for San Diego because they got Dreyer. And Dreyer is that MVP, MVP. And to be honest, all you need now is a Robin. And you have that with Chucky when he's healthy. And then you add a whole bunch of MLS level quality guys around him, like Godoy, a guy who's been there before in an expansion team. It's like I was saying, CJ Dos Santos, and you just see where these guys take you. Man, I might be completely wrong, and I thought they were going to be a fringe playoff team, but man, they're going the whole St. Louis City approach, where they might win the Western Conference and they might even win the Supporters Shield,
which is absolutely insane. Again, people came out with prognostications, and again, no fault to anybody, right? Like, how are you supposed to place a team that you don't know what the players are, who the players are, and then when you do know, all you know is expansion draft. CJ Dos Santos. So now this team has come into their own. They really have a handle on their style, and I think that's been what's been very good about them is that they are able to just adapt that style. That playbook is a copy paste. It's already there. They don't have to make anything necessarily. They just have to improve and make it their own from Right to Dream and FC Northland. So with MLS, again, the first time you saw San Diego FC, like any other team, almost took that step back. And for the most part, you see them once. And if you win in that time, you get the 3 points. You see a team again, and then they figure some things out. What's in MLS in terms of just other teams really kind of understanding and doing their homework. Is that typical where, hey, you may have caught me off surprise the first time, but the next time the coaching levels at a level where you're not going to you're going to get out coached for a young coach like Mikey Vadas. Is that a situation in this league?
Yeah, hey, look, to be completely honest with you, MLS is a weird league where you don't play everybody, and you don't play everybody twice, or it's not home and away. So you can get away with surprising some teams this year, and then you don't have to face them again, or you get away with not having to play maybe the best managers in the league, right? Because you don't play everybody. So personally, it could be a lightning in the bottle type of thing with San Diego, and they're taking advantage and they're getting as many 3 points as possible, which is a great thing because you have to be able to just accumulate all the points possible. And what San Diego's doing very well is kind of accumulating those points in the middle of the season when a lot of big teams start to fall off or they start to lose a little bit of motivation. San Diego's still chugging along. I mean, when Chucky went down, there wasn't a beat really missed. I mean, I would say, right when he came back or was thinking about coming back, that's when they went on their crazy run and then really started climbing up the charts. Hey, the Western Conference didn't look like there was a surefire kind of number one. I mean, Seattle, I would say, but Seattle had the Club World Cup. Seattle was going to be tired from that. They were going to have a little bit of a hangover. And teams that don't play in many tournaments, and this can be a benefit, San Diego, as of right now, only has this to really worry about. So they really do need to kind of take advantage of having this one regular season going on while teams like the Earthquakes are in U.S. Open Cup, teams like Austin are in the U.S. Open Cup, teams like Seattle are in the Club World Cup. They've had to worry about other tournaments. And San Diego is going to get that with Leagues Cup. They're going to have to worry, but there's going to be a break. So in a sense, you're going to have to worry about, flipping your roster and kind of having enough bench support. And we're going to see if San Diego doesn't fall off. And if they're able to keep a hold of their form they're in, man, this is going to be a crazy inaugural season. And it's going to be one for the record books.
And from now, what we're hearing here locally in San Diego, as far as just like the cautionary tales for any MLS team, whether it's expansion, it's, hey, wait for summer, because that's really when the tides start turning in terms of, hey, you might have the best start of a season, but once those summer months start coming in, the travel, the international play, the other tournaments, that just these other factors start really kind of compiling. Is that true of MLS? It's just here as approaching these summer months where the Europeans maybe start falling off, or what are some things that in this league San Diego can maybe have to be aware of?
Look, there's always one thing I always say: there's death, taxes, and the Sounders making a run to make the MLS playoffs because the Sounders are easily, on paper, the best team in the Western Conference, in my opinion. And in my opinion, I think you have to worry about the Sounders. Vancouver is starting to kind of not wilter away, but definitely cool down a bit. I thought, their 3-0 loss to the Galaxy was kind of shocking. Let's see if Sebastian Berhalter comes back to that team, Brian White, and let's see if those guys can kind of do something for that Vancouver team that needs a little bit of juice back into them. But yeah, you're 100% right. The summer months are the tough months for a lot of MLS clubs. I mean, there's this is the time where you find out pretenders and contenders, right? This is the time where you truly get to see who the real threats are for the MLS Cup playoffs and who isn't. And for right now, like I can already tell you, the Galaxy aren't going to come back this year, right? St. Louis is not going to come back this year. If you look at the standings, if you bring it back up, LAFC is going to come back and they're going to be at the top, but they might be a new look. Like I can already tell you that Salt Lake, all those guys underneath there are going to have a hard time coming back with 13 games left or even less, 12 games left. And it's just going to be tough for them. I mean, and San Diego's already, I would kind of say San Diego already has a playoff spot locked up. Like, unless there is a monumental drop off in terms of quality for San Diego, I would already kind of key them in for an MLS playoff spot.
One of the things that is a little bit concerning here in San Diego, though, is the depth. San Diego doesn't have an MLS next team, doesn't have that baseline. So when you have important players like Alvarado going down for the season, Andres Reyes, which I heard was a human being at some point. He made an appearance for 30 minutes and got himself a red card and poof, disappeared out for the season. That coming down officially, actually, from the club this last week. The fitness of this team is going to be crucial. The style that they play is very high octane, high pressing, high everything. So these months, again, are going to start wearing on the team and the depth. Talk to me about depth in MLS. Obviously, the healthiest team goes and wins the whole thing in a lot of different ways. But in these months, is there just the injury uptake, or is there something that, again, this can be a problem for SDFC because there's no well of players, just like Seattle has with Tacoma Defiance and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, look, I'm going to talk about San Jose because I cover them, week in, week out. I think San Jose has a very good MLS Next Pro team, and in terms of their quality coming up to the first team, you still don't want to really throw those guys in. I would say they're a little bit more of substitution fodder if you need it, especially for this US Open Cup. They've been using a second squad, but now that they're going to play Austin in a quarterfinal game, I'm expecting, like a more of a first team kind of look. But that's really only when you really see these MLS Next Pro guys kind of get some roster spots. Usually what happens in MLS, if a guy goes down with an injury for the whole season, what they'll do is they'll move him over to a season-ending injury list, and that actually clears up their cap space for San Diego to kind of fill in that slot with a player within the league or outside of the league. But I can see, in baseball terms, I can see San Diego be a buyer in this transfer window, adding some MLS guys or MLS talent, or let's say MLS kind of depth to go ahead and make a run in the playoffs and have a little bit of backup if they need it for Leagues Cup. And I think they could easily add some MLS talent. And I'm not so sure off the top of my head how much GAM they have, but moving at least one of those guys to the season-ending injury list, whoever makes the most money, they're definitely going to have some, wiggle room to bring in, one or maybe two guys if they can.
And you mentioned it right there, Leagues Cup. That's another layer for San Diego FC that they haven't faced so far yet. We're going to start seeing some weekday games, some Friday night games here at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego. So what has this league now developed in, right? Because it's still a relatively fresh idea. The Mexican teams, they're still complaining, rightly so, because they're stranded in airports, sort of situations for those of you at home taking notes. But Leagues Cup, talking to me about the structure of this and how important it is in the eyes of the league or for other teams in MLS.
Well, Tony, me and we're both from the West Coast. We know how much LigaMX runs this part of the world. No matter how you try to say, you walk outside, you see America jerseys, Chivas jerseys, Cruz Azul, Tigres, you see whatever team, and for you, maybe Tijuana, you see some Cholos, right? LigaMX is the main league in California, whether you want to say it or not. And in my opinion, I think Leagues Cup is the best thing that's happened to MLS in a long time, because when you have competitive matches with MLS teams and LigaMX teams, you're opening up the eyes of the league to a whole nother group of people. Every single all I know is every single Americanista knew who Denny Bwanga was when he torched their defense and made them sit out the Club World Cup. Every single person knew who Bwanga was. Mexico was talking about Bwanga. Shoot, they even threw in an offer for him, right? And
Yeah.
I think Mexico or Liga MX is the king of the region. And anytime you can have competitive matches with a league that has fans like that, with the league that has talent like that, with the league that has money like that, and a league that buys players, you have to take it. And I hate to put MLS in this way because you guys are new and you guys are having fun with this first season, but MLS is a selling league. Look at Matias Bogusz from LAFC. He went to Cruz Azul and for what, like crazy money, like 13 million if I'm not mistaken, and LAFC bought him for 1 million. So they made a 10x profit on him. He became a key player for Cruz Azul, and they were able to go ahead and basically win the LigaMX trophy. So, in my opinion, you want MLS teams to play competitive matches with LigaMX because that is only going to help the league grow. That is going to help the league grow within another country, and it's also going to bring more eyeballs to your team when it comes to selling time. When Dejan Joveljic was about to, leave LA Galaxy because they couldn't afford him, Tigres threw in an offer for him. That probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a tournament like Leagues Cup and other, Liga MX teams were able to see the level of these players, and they were able to show that they respected these players enough with formal offers or even, interest in these players. Because before it was odd to see players go from MLS to Liga MX and make, difference. And we've seen players like, I know there's probably some Chivas fans that don't want me to say this, but now, another guy who went from Quakes to Chivas, he hasn't had the best time at Chivas, but he still, scored some goals. So, but he wasn't a superstar in San Jose. So it's like, it's still interesting to see that these players are making their way over to Liga MX that you wouldn't have seen before. And in terms of like a San Diego FC fan, I would be happy just to, display my passion and my newfound love for the game and newfound love for this team against, maybe your cousins that are Tigres fans, your cousins that are Pachuca fans, no, dude, my team's going to scrape your team. And that's the love of it. I mean, at the end of the day, family is usually what gets us all into the sport, the love and the passion that we all have for our heritage and everything. And a lot of us are Mexican American, or at least Latin American, or at least we have friends that are Mexican American. And Leagues Cup is that time where you can totally turn your head to a non-MLS fan and say, you're about to go down. And that's what makes me super excited about it.
I love that. And for San Diego fans, again, if you're keeping score at home, these are your opponents. This is your upcoming ones, right? Obviously Tigres and Mazatlan there, but Pachuca stands out with that storyline of Irving El Chucky Lozano having grown up. That's his boyhood club, comes in when he was presented here. His coach in Pachuca came in, Ojitos Mesa in the front row. Like, this is going to be a great event, a great day, but it also presents little cool storylines like this. And
Exactly.
what have you really enjoyed about Leagues Cup in the play, in the actual tournament, in the 98 minutes in these games? What's something that stands out that's particularly maybe different from just strictly MLS play?
Look, I'm going to give this credit to 100% the fans. I went to Inter Miami Tigres last year in Houston, and man, oh man, did the Tigres fan take over on NRG Stadium. They made that game feel like it was a playoff game. They made that game feel like it was an international game. They brought the same energy that was in the Club World Cup games that I went to this year. And I think that's perfect for any sort of MLS player because I hate to say it, but Liga MX brings a different fan in. They might bring a non-so family-friendly fan, which is good because when you're going to play for the national team, it gets hostile. MLS is at least in San Jose, it's a beautiful kind of thing where you can bring your kids. You can have a nice family outing. You'll clap for the players. A very English type of vibe, right? Sometimes, but when you get this Latin influence or this Latin fan base, it creates a different type of pressure for the players and the young players. One would say the kids, but I think it's honestly great, and I think it's a very good way to get these people or these players prepared for and fans. CCC. In reality, we need to get more competitive matches so that MLS can do well in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Leagues Cup is a great opportunity because it's not friendlies. You could actually win a berth to the CONCACAF Champions League. 3 teams make it, and that's huge if you really think about it. Because usually you would have to have the most points, or
Yeah.
this is you win 4 or 5 games, and you're like 1 game away from making CONCACAF Champions League. And I think if you're a San Diego fan, you have to be thinking that. Yes, your road's a little tough. I'm not gonna lie. It looks tough, especially now that they trimmed a lot of the fat from this tourney. They got rid of some, MLS teams in there. But I think this is going to be an exciting time. The level of play is just a different level because it's an international game in any way or shape or form. CONCACAF Champions League is a different type of level as well. And this is just an extension of that, in my opinion.
Favian Renkel here, part of the Urban Pitch family. Check out his work as well. Fantastic stuff with Leagues Cup. How much of this, and again, derecho a la flecha, man. How much of this is either another excuse to get Messi a trophy or an absolute cash grab?
Look, I'm gonna be real with you. Anything is a cash grab these days. If you want to tell me that the Club World Cup is not a cash grab, but this is, all right, all right. Like, or let's call a spade a spade. 100% this is a cash grab, but at the same time, it's a great opportunity for MLS teams to really display what they're all about. I'm in the boat where I work for Leagues Cups, editorial, and I'm in the boat where I think this is valuable, but so is US Open Cup. So in my opinion, I think MLS should definitely allow them, the teams, to be in both. If you want to use a second team to play in US Open Cup until the quarterfinals, no problem. It's like England. They do the same thing. So I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of the Leagues Cup versus US Open Cup argument. And for all the San Diego fans, I've never seen this before. It's, for me, I want to see both. I have Mexican American friends that I want to tell them, hey, man, America is about to lose to Boanga. Hey, Chivas, dude, they didn't even win against San Jose last year. I want to have that kind of banter with, people that love Mexican soccer, and they think they're so much better. But right now, yeah, they're better. But when let's talk, when Leagues Cup kind of happens, for the 4th or 5th time, okay, well, yeah, they play in America. That's the whole point of the tournament. I would love to see Leagues Cup happen in Mexico one year so that people are like, okay, it's fair now. But it's not going to be that because there's so many LigaMX fans that are in America that don't get to see their team. That's the whole point of this tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah, why make pesos when you can make dollars?
Exactly.
At the end of the day, like that's again, straight as it is. Like I like to just, I'm not a glass half full, glass half empty. There's water in the cup. What are you gonna do with it?
Well, the whole thing is like, it's gonna be hard to sell Sporting Kansas City versus Mazatlan, right? But maybe in Kansas City, it sells out, and I think it's more of a business decision rather than making MLS look good decision.
Yeah, and I can tell you too, here locally in San Diego, with San Diego Loyal in the USL Championship being involved and them making a little bit of a cool, interesting run and getting a taste locally of Open Cup, right? Like that was something that a lot of fans were asking, like, "Hey, whoa, like, what do you mean? Like, we're just getting the fast pass to Leagues Cup? That's great and all, but like, there's this other tournament too." I don't think San Diego FC necessarily has the bandwidth at this point to enter 2 tournaments for sure. But no, that's an interesting kind of layer where, I think it's an either or from this argument in terms of the national narrative of like, well, it's either you are in this or in that. It's like, well, ¿por qué no los dos? Like that's fair.
Look, I started writing for US Open Cup for when I was like a small writer. Like I still go to all the US Open Cup games for the Earthquakes because sometimes I don't even go to MLS games, but I'll still go to US Open Cup games. It's just a different feeling. It's more like grassroots soccer, something that I started my career with, and I get that kick from it. But man, can you sell Sacramento Republic versus Houston Dynamo, or can you sell more Tigres versus the Dynamo, right? Like it just, in terms of dollar signs, I get it. I'm not happy with it, but it makes sense. If I was the commissioner, there's some jokes that I'm going to be Leagues Cup commissioner one day. I would say let him play both. And if you want to have your MLS, Next Pro side wear the, main kit for one game, do it. Like let's find a way to do that because that's what they do in England. Like let's not make any sort of fan base mad. Like let's just have more soccer. Yeah, there's more games, but it's up to your coach, which he's used to doing, rotating the squads and making sure that people get minutes.
Yeah, and again, like the one caveat where I would point out is like, hey, like if a team is being overworked, like the health is always first. Like that always has to come first. If it's a little bit too much, make sure that that's okay, ready to go out. You see players taking a stand. Pulisic in the Gold Cup, Pulisic in the Gold Cup.
That's a little different there. That was a little different. Don't get me started on that one. All right.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, even here locally, Luca de la Torre in one of the press conferences after a match was like, yeah, no, if a guy says he doesn't want to play or he can't play because he's taking care of himself, then let him do that. But there's a lot of arguments on either side. Either way, this tournament is happening. San Diego FC is part of it, and I'm excited to see what this new wrinkle of the season is going to bring. But Fabian, you bring up San Jose, NorCal, SoCal. There's beef. Let's just establish that. I don't know if you know this, right? But there is beef. Is that a real thing up there by any chance, or is that just our perception down here?
Wait, San Diego's in SoCal?
No,
yeah, just kidding.
It's pretty much in Mexico at this point. I can throw a rock and I hit the wall from how Southwest. This is the most Southwesternly podcast in the nation, I think. I do believe.
Yes and no. I don't think there is any sort of animosity towards San Diego.
Okay.
I think an enemy of an enemy is a friend, right? And I think the main enemy for the Earthquakes is always going to be the Galaxy. And then even LAFC isn't like viewed that badly compared to the Galaxy. And I assume San Diego is viewed even lighter, So no baseball type of rivalry yet, right? With the Padres and the Giants, where there's a little bit of animosity there, but nothing in soccer yet.
Barry Bonds once said that his favorite place to hit home runs was Qualcomm Stadium into the palm trees, and I will never forgive him for that. One of the greatest players of all time, but I will never forgive him for that. Also, he gave us a free Taco Bell in a World Series. In any case, again, this is really cool as it's building San Diego FC. Is there an established, unofficial kind of score sheet, like a California? I know we've
like Copa Texas.
Oh yeah. Is there something established with?
Not yet, actually.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, the Quakes have the Heritage Cup with the Seattle Sounders, which is a little more odd. But no, nothing like a California Cup. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we totally could do one.
I think that's something that we can work in and massage in. Let's work on that. I think we can start something too, just for the banter. But in any case, San Diego will also face San Jose. Is San Jose? I mean, are they even looking down here in terms of what's happening, or in terms of like, oh, there's this other California team coming up that may be looking for a rival? Because again, everybody wants to build in a rivalry. But
I think Bruce Arena has been there so many times that he kind of doesn't even look at the other teams at this point of the season. I think he's truly focused on the next game. Like that's a coach I actually think is just focused on the next game, because he's been in so many highs and lows, maybe the MLS GOAT when it comes to coaches. And he's been there, done that. I think San Diego is going to be a fun one for the fans out here. I know it's going to be a pretty big game when Chucky Lozano comes, because we have a huge Mexican-American population out here. So they're going to be excited to see Chucky. But to be honest, I think unless something happens outside, I think on the pitch, it's going to be a pretty normal game. Maybe a good test for the Earthquakes, because I was assuming the Earthquakes would be somewhere around third, fourth place, and they're more around the playoff line. And I think the Earthquakes want more now that Chicho Arango is healthy and Josef is healthy, and they're finally, hitting strides, and now they have an open DP slot as well. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this matchup, because to be honest, the Earthquakes are probably looking at the San Diego and saying this is going to be a good measuring stick for the playoffs.
That's awesome to hear. Really good stuff, Fabian here on Sarape de San Diego. Thank you again for coming on. I would love to have you, as Leagues Cup and this the tournament keeps on happening, to bring you back and kind of do a little bit of a pulse test. If that's good with you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
No, absolutely. And if you want to go ahead and just let the people know where they can find you or things that can be on the lookout for.
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter or on X at Favian Renkel, just like my regular name. And you can find me on Threads. I know no one says that, but you can find me on Threads, where I always make sure to tweet some things out and get some funny moments out of Threads. No one's on Threads, but you know what I'm thinking? It's connected to Instagram, so one day it has to be something. And I'm like one of the only MLS guys on there, so I always try to make it a thing. But yeah, Instagram too. I am Favian Renkel on there, so that's somewhere where you can definitely find a lot of my like personal stuff, but also where I kind of show where you could find MLS content, where like some random places that my reports show up and things like that. But yeah, my whole thing is I want to make the casual sports fan, a soccer fan, and that's an uphill battle because everybody knows how the American sports fan is, and that's going to be a battle that I'm going to need everybody here. So I'm excited to connect with you, Tony, and thank you for having me on. And I'm glad that you guys are all here helping MLS grow. That's for sure.
Hey, it's all part of it, man. But again, thank you for coming in. If you want to stick around real quick, and then we'll do a little wrap up. But it has been El Sarape de San Diego.